if you're genuinely thinking about putting your head up wherever you're at, whatever organization or business, or you're thinking about starting your own business, not only do I want to slap you and say don't, but I want you to consider your ability to connect to humans is going to drive that ship. Because had I been more connected to myself 6-7 years ago, I would have been able to identify by means of either mentorship, coaches, therapists, whatever, blind spots that I was carrying in my heart about who I am as a person that would show up in my business. You know what I mean? So our blind spots, our insecurities, our wounds will show up super fast inside of our ability to lead other people. Like that. It'll show up way faster than it will inside of romantic relationships or even in family. This is the fastest way to get triggered. Is to you want to see all your stuff come up? Start a business. What's up, y'all? I'm Zach Saleh. Welcome to the show. We got Jack behind the camera. This is Tyler Tobin to my left, your right. This good-looking man is a lifelong friend of mine, also a business colleague. We work together in several fashions. But really excited to talk to you today about several things. One being leadership, and the second is around really the element of connection inside of leadership.
And the ups and downs of starting a business. And why you shouldn't.
Why you shouldn't. Don't do it.
And why you should.
See you soon. I just said this to someone the other day. I was like, this is... like your work family, it could be argued that you spend more time or just as much with your work family as you do your direct blood family or adopted family. So, I mean, there's just so much to unpack there, because we went from like, hey, your job is to go to a school system, learn how to sit down, shut up, be told what to do. You get up when the bell rings, you go eat, and you come back, you do your job, we'll show up, finish your widgets, right? And then you get paid. That's the end of the conversation. That's the transaction. Whereas to now, yes, you're spending the same amount of time, but the reality is there's a human element nowadays that there never has been in the course of the work dynamic. You're dealing with humans at a level you never have. I think there's this big crossover between employers that are so big or even small that just treat people with transactional relationship, and they never involve themselves with them or connect with them and build any relational equity. You know, there is a fine line between you're just not doing your job and we have a relationship, but I still have to let you go. Do you know what I mean?
You know, you have to have expectations, but I think what you said was if business owners are treating it like a machine where it's very transactional, they don't have the relationship part, I think that's where you have to be careful, because let's break it down on another level. Like, personally, let's say you're dating someone or you're in a romantic relationship with someone. What is a typical reason that someone will leave? There might be a few, but what are like some of the top ones?
Unhappy, you didn't leave the toothpaste cap on, like
you don't feel wanted, you don't feel loved, don't feel desired.
Expectations aren't being met.
Yeah, well, I think a big thing is not feeling wanted. I think a lot of people, if they're not getting the attention that they want, or they don't feel like they're being pursued, right?
They feel undervalued.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They don't, and so I think when you look at longevity and retention within a company, that when people feel needed and they feel like that they're not just fulfilling themselves in the work that they do and they have fulfillment there, but they feel like that they truly have an impact on what they do, is why they stay so long. I think it's when people stop feeling, just like in relationships, stop feeling wanted, they start to get bored and look for other things. And so if you come with the mentality of everyone's replaceable, every man is dispensable, if you have that mantra, eventually your employees are going to believe it and they're going to leave. They're going to leave. And so you have to take responsibility there. But I think when it comes to instilling ownership, is make them feel like that what they do matters. And then it doesn't just become about the money. I love what Richard Branson said. Pay your people well enough that they don't leave, but treat your people well enough that they don't want to.
I like that.
And I think there's a huge balance there. I think you want to always want to find ways for me as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as a company owner, to pay my people well and actually find ways for me to make less and them to make more, to live a higher quality of life. Because as an entrepreneur, I have ways to leverage different businesses to make money. Right. And so I think if you do that and you're actively showing your employees that you want them there and that you care for them and that they're wanted, I think that's an incredible recipe for success. And also to remember, I think that in a company, your greatest resource is your human resource. Hands down.
I would agree with you. I would even submit taking that needle all the way to the extreme and stating that the greatest asset a leader can present to his company is the ability to connect with the people in it. Yeah, you need to know how to connect to yourself. And that's really the basis of writing this whole first book, has been around, if you're going to have the audacity to think that you can connect well with others, and you keep looking at your experience and go, God, why do I keep experiencing this pain? It's because everyone is a mirror around us, but we don't realize that, and it's a gift. Like, they're going to reveal inside of you your pain, your previous experience, without you realizing it's your stuff that's also contributing to the experience. So if you want to have a good relationship and connection with someone, you've got to understand how to have a good relationship and connection with self.
So let me ask you a question about self-awareness. You've owned a construction company since 2011. You've obviously experienced a lot of success in those years and also a lot of failures, right? You kind of got to taste both.
Yeah.
So what was blocking you from being self-aware that you needed help and that you needed to bring in other people?
It's a really good question. What caused me to recruit someone else is what you're asking. What caused me to bring on someone else?
Start there.
I experienced enough pain and I was exhausted enough that I finally was like, I should pay attention to this. I'm burning out. I'm ready to burn this thing to the ground.
Right, you're ready to just...
I'm out. I don't care.
Dairy Queen,
don't call me. Yeah, I'm done. But the irony is, like, I could never go back to working for someone else.
Okay.
Like, so I knew that pain was greater, but I was ignoring my internal pain for a season of life.
You had an ultimatum you gave yourself, essentially.
Yeah,
you came to a crossroads.
Crap or get off the pot.
Okay,
like either kill this or grow.
Okay, but like 90% of small businesses fail within the first year. 63% of all statistics are made up on the spot. But but we know that an enormous amount of small businesses fail within the first year. You already made it several, but it was stagnant for a long time. So, but why did it take 6 years of pain? Because what we have to understand and explain to entrepreneurs, people wanting to start a small business, they're not going to make it 6 years.
You know what it is? I didn't know that, number one, I could find people to work with me that shared my values. Like, I didn't know, like, I realized, like, yes, did it help massively that you're an extremely talented sales guy? Sure, absolutely. Take it easy. Can you widen that door to fit his head? Anyway, my point is that, like, I realized that we both extremely valued communication. In fact, a large amount of our conflict has been around a shared value, and that's communication. We've become pretty good at communicating well with each other, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and what's interesting though is we're part of the backstory before you brought me on board the Lionheart. Something happened that you switched from being risk adverse and working with other people, right? You found out that you failed initially on your first shot at bringing on a salesperson, and then you met some massive success after you brought me on. But what clicked for you that you said, okay, I'm not going to be as risk adverse and I'm going to try and see if I can bring someone else in to help me? Like, what really happened there other than pain? Like, what shifted for you?
I think, if I'm honest, I genuinely asked myself the question, like, what am I doing this for? Like, what's the payout? Like, what?
Your why?
Yeah.
Your purpose.
I revisited my why, and I was like, what do I want out of this?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, if you figure out your why, that will trump all the pain you have to get through. It creates a psychosis in you that drives you to your goal. It's like, that's my why. Like, you're not going to stop me. So I revisit my why, and I realized, like, I couldn't in that moment in my head, I can't go do the things I want to do unless I create success inside of this vehicle. So I had better get serious about this and take it more seriously and help it grow. Because right now it's not growing, it's not anything other than me, and I didn't take it seriously. I did not take myself seriously at all. In fact, I was kind of embarrassed. People ask me, like, what do you do? I'm like, I own a commercial roofing company. And I'm like,
please don't ask any more questions.
Please don't ask any more questions. Like,
just stop.
Can we leave that at that?
You want a coffee?
Thanks. Right. Well, I had shame because, like, it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't that successful. It's like, it's a cool idea to say, but, like, you have no clue the amount of responsibility that comes with this, the risk, the exposure. There's massive reward. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I think for me, what I've come to believe, my paradigm has shifted in that if you want to, we've both said this statement, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go somewhere far, take people, right? Yeah. So I realized, like, if I want to grow something, I've got to involve people, Yeah, I got to forgive myself. I've had to grieve the loss. And I haven't even included everyone inside of the business that's working with us currently on the losses that I've encountered. I've had to forgive myself for some really big whiffs that I've swung at, and I think moving past those, but squeezing those for all they're worth, instead of just looking at it and go, it's kind of like an ex. You date, you're like, oh, I'll never do that again. You're like, hindsight is never 20/20. It never is. We've got to be willing to look at it from completely different angles and go like, I wonder if this could be true. I wonder, name 10 things that I could have done differently on that sale or on that employee that I hired. Because essentially, anyone that I hired that didn't work out, that's on me. I either didn't set them up for success or I didn't set clear expectations, and they should have disqualified themselves on the front end. The hire that I hired on before you wasn't the first person I hired. I've failed at this multiple times. And finally I was like, I'm either going to sink or swim. Like, one of the two. Like, this is either going to work or it's not. Like, you just get to the point where you're like, you no longer get tired of you don't get scared of getting punched in the face anymore. You're just like, I'm going to get punched. Just accept it. I'm going to fail, but I'm going to learn from my failure. That's the key. And so I think I've instead of being afraid of failure and pain, I've embraced it.
I love, like, when you're talking and I'm seeing you in this scenario, you remind me so much of the character in the plot around About a Boy with Hugh Grant. And he's like this extremely, like, he falls into a lot of money and he just quits everything. Like, he just, every day he goes get coffee, he goes shopping, he just has no job and no responsibilities. And one of the things he says he realizes in his own monologue is that no man is an island. And so he ends up basically befriending this young kid that's struggling with self-esteem, and it's a beautiful story. But, like, eventually he just got sick of being alone. Yeah. And how he viewed success.
I think I broke down crying when I brought you on board.
Did you really?
Down. Yeah, I was like, wow. I can't do this anymore. Like, I physically, I'm gonna die.
Help me.
Medic.
Help me. Yeah.
So I mean, it's different whenever you have your back to a wall versus having someone have their back up against yours.
Yeah, I love the. I mean, for me personally, I think one of the things about entrepreneurship is it's kind of a catch-22. You have to be really hard-headed and kind of stubborn in certain ways because you're going against the grain. And so people that are hard-headed and are visionaries tend to be hyper-independent. And then so for us wanting to start a business, well, I'll just do it by myself. But then you realize that I can't do it alone. And I think one of the greatest, like, lessons I've learned, it's better to own 50% of something than 100% of nothing. And that sounds silly, but if you're looking at starting a business, like, one of the greatest things you can do is find people with similar values, similar mindsets, similar passions, and partner with them. See what you can give up, right? Whether it's equity or creative direction, so that you can have people that can push you, hold you accountable, and iron sharpens iron. I think that's the one thing for me personally, looking back at, starting Momentum Marketing, and as I said, all right, I'm going to partner with someone no matter what. I'm not going to do this alone. And doing that by itself, I gave up, almost half of the equity in the company to start it that way, but I was able to gain so much more traction in the first year. Like, I was able to get that foundation. I think we overanalyze and we overthink a lot of things in life when it comes to conflict, when you just need to bring it up. We get far too concerned with being tactful and how the other person's gonna react, and really that doesn't matter. I think for us especially, because Zach and I, growing up together, riding the school bus together, I mean, we've been through a lot of conflict personally together against one another, but I'm thankful that we just showed up and talked about it, like genuinely. Just the fact that one of us brought it up, no matter, fists were flying or shoes flying, whatever, like just the fact that we showed up and talked about it, we've always been able to work it out.
Here's why: because we both value communication. It's a shared value. So there's three things. Identify your values. The second thing is take a look at your history and identify your pain. What's taken place without just with an objective mindset. We are professional negators of our pain because we've had to become that way in order to be acceptable. So identify your values and identify your pain. The third thing is become a part of your healing story. Most people, we want to look at it and go, oh, like time heals all wounds, or, oh, I've forgiven that person, or I've moved on. I promise you haven't. 9 times out of 10, we haven't really addressed the trauma that's inside of our body. And as a leader, if I want to connect with a human, I've got to be able to connect with myself. In order to connect with myself, I've got to connect with my story. So the third is be an agent of healing in your story. And in order to do that, I genuinely believe, I cannot emphasize this enough, in coaching, in therapy, not just talk therapy, but therapy that really gets in there and helps you process the emotions that you felt during your time of pain. And trauma and pain is really just experiencing something other than love, disappointment, rejection. If I give you a plug-in to a vacuum and I say, go plug that in for me real quick for me, and you go and you seek connection, you go to plug that in, and you experience pain, you get shocked, after a while, you're going to stop trying to plug that in, right? You're going to no longer seek connection. And I think as humans, we do that naturally. We no longer seek connection. And so the secret, in my opinion, to good leadership is understanding how humans connect. Because once you learn how to connect to yourself, Jack, you're going to become, there's like this crazy moment in time where you're like, oh, I see their crap from a mile away. And because I'm working through my own stuff, I can see their stuff. And they can't see that because it's a blind spot because it's always been right there. You know what I mean? I'm Zach Saleh. You can find me on Instagram at Zach, ZACH.Saleh, SALEH. This is Tyler Tobin, otherwise known as Tyler Tobbs, TOBS, on Instagram. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the Twitters. But yeah, one of the things that I'm really grateful to be talking about is leadership and the ability to connect with people, and how it's just so important that we redefine the aspect of leadership in the workplace, not just in corporate America, but in relationships and entrepreneurship, etc. So yeah, check it out. Comment. Would love to hear you guys' thoughts, any feedback. No name calling, be nice. Yeah, bring it on.
Deuces.